So John Boehner has a new book out, and he's doing a media tour. He's been on all the various outlets. Surprisingly, one of the best questions he's got comes from The View. So here's a View host who's calling out John Boehner to his face.
Speaker, talking about crazies, throughout this book, you describe how your party has been taken over by kooks and lunatics who, quote, want to blow up Washington. And you say you were the mayor of, quote, Crazy Town. Now your party has Marjorie Taylor Greene, who blamed Jewish space lasers for wildfires in its big tent, along with Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz. Is there a way really to rehabilitate the party? And considering, in all fairness, that you did your fair share of backing some of their Tea Party predecessors when you were in office, do you feel that you were perhaps part of the problem?
Well, listen, the American people send people to Washington on both sides of the aisle. Some of them Republicans, some are Democrats. Some are traditional Republicans like me, some traditional Democrats. They also send people who are there just to create chaos for their own political benefit on the far left and the far right. I didn't get these people elected. The American people sent them there. And, as the leader in the House for 5 years, my job was to try to mobilize the majority party into doing things that would help the American people, help American government. And there were some people who were always getting in the way. And I should say that 90% of the members of Congress on both sides of the aisle are really good, decent people trying to do the right thing for the American people every day. But there's the fringe in both parties that make it difficult for the leaders, frankly, to lead. And these days, I think both parties are being held hostage by the loudest voices in their party. And so it's a very difficult time to govern. And the last thing I'm going to do is to make it more difficult for those who are trying to lead to do their job.
So asked if he's responsible or partly responsible for the rise of the Tea Party, he says, bro, there's like crazy people on the left and there's like crazy people on the right. And so it's pretty equally bad on both sides, and 90% of the members of Congress are good people. And it's just the 10% far right and the far left that are crazy. So in other words, he totally dodges, doesn't answer the question, does a full false equivalence. John Boehner played footsies with birtherism. He first shunned it and was like, no, the state of Hawaii says Obama was born there, and I have no reason to doubt the state of Hawaii. And then after he got backlash from that, he started playing footsies with birtherism to try to appease them. Don't tell me when you feed a delusion like that, a stupid, dumb conspiracy theory, bigoted one at that, because it's like, the first black president obviously is not American. That's where that stems from, right? Don't tell me that you didn't feed this stuff. There's a very famous story about John Boehner. He was handing out checks from big tobacco companies on the floor of the House. That is like the definition of corruption. They should have a picture of this guy's face in the dictionary by the word corruption. That's what that is. And so I have no sympathy for him. Now, John Boehner's taken on fights recently with Ted Cruz. He's taken on fights with a lot of the Tea Party types. But Boehner even says, I voted for Trump in 2016. I voted for Trump in 2020. I vote, Republican down ticket. So make no mistake about it, guys. The only reason he's against them is for petty personal reasons. So the Tea Party made his life difficult, and so he hates the Tea Party. Ted Cruz made his life difficult, and so he hates Ted Cruz. But, it has nothing to do with substance. Nothing. Nothing to do with policy. Nothing at all. Because actually, he agrees with these people completely on policy. And so I hate this new breed, this new variety of Republican that comes out there and acts like, I'm not like those crazy Republicans. I'm one of the good Republicans who will push for the exact same policies as the crazy Republicans. There is no difference. The only difference is mainstream media now welcomes these equally terrible traditional Republicans with open arms. That's the difference. The difference is you've successfully gotten back into the mainstream of society by saying, hey, Trump did some questionable things like egged on the insurrection, and the Tea Party's a little bit crazy. Little things like that, and all of a sudden the media, comes themselves and they can't stop giving you fawning coverage. But credit for this difficult question, because it was a difficult question. And so he is an embodiment of the deep corruption of Washington. And when he says 90% of members of Congress are good people, I'm sure they are good people, but they're institutionally corrupt, and that's the problem. And so there's a reason why Congress always has like a 20% approval rating, because everybody knows they're not representing the will of the American people. But this guy wants to blame it on just the fringes and wants to act like the far right and the far left are equally crazy, and they're the real problem. Because when us adults were governing, when me and Obama were like cutting deals, I mean, obviously it was good for the American people. No, it wasn't. You were trying to cut Social Security and cut Medicare, and you were continuing wars and doing shit like that. And I mean, it just is not good for the American people. So basically this segment is like a lunatic Republican complains about lunatic Republicans. That's what this is. So I have no sympathy. You shouldn't have any sympathy either. Everything, him calling out any other Republicans is just petty personal beefs. It has nothing to do with policy. And so he's still, to his core, deeply corrupt, and he is part of the problem, if not the main problem. Because it is the corruption and the status quo that led to the rise of people on the far right, but also people on the so-called far left, which is just social democrats who are right about stuff. It's the corruption of Washington and people like Boehner that led to people saying, I'll try anything else. Fuck, give me the crazy person is even better than this. So, look in the mirror, Dippy.